I'm Dr. Ellen Gorsevsky. I am a colleague and professor in the School of Media and Communication in our graduate program, as well as the chair and associate professor in the department. So I remembered, just kind of when Wangari Maathai won the Nobel Peace Prize for her environmental and social justice activism. I just always remembered that and then just kind of mentally forgot it and filed it away. And then much later, when I came to the kind of book idea of looking into, who are these women Nobel Peace Prize winners? And
Wangari was the first African woman and the first environmentalist to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Embarrassingly, I was a total ignoramus. Other than knowing, her name, I really knew very little about her. I was a completely clean slate. And the more I learned, and I read her memoir, which was just incredible. It was a page turner. Yeah. Former President Bill Clinton wrote the little blurb on the back of her book. So it's like clearly she was someone of world-class stature that world leaders were taking note of.
I'll always remember her as a tireless advocate for social justice and human rights, an exceptional leader, a woman demanding equal treatment for all.
What are some of the contributions of Dr. Wangari Maathai towards environmental conservation and peace building that you can recall?
I would have to say the Greenbelt movement, and I've lost track of. There's actually a little ticker on the web where it shows how many trees have been planted as a result of the Greenbelt movement in Kenya, across Africa, and also worldwide. And it's in the millions. It may even be up to billions for all I know at this point. But when I had originally written of her a few years back, it was up in the many millions of trees. So I think that is one of her greatest legacies. Her other greatest legacy, and it's very interesting when you look at all of the sort of great spiritual leaders of the world, whether it's the Dalai Lama of Tibet or the current Pope, who is very much turned away from wearing golden rings and golden slippers and washing the feet of, poor convicts. They are all very interested in two things. One, the problem of climate change, and two, preservation of what's left of our ever-shrinking natural wilderness areas and environmental areas and ecosystems. So she, like these other great spiritual leaders, had a great sense of reverence for, the beauty and the value for not just for the people who live in a given community, but for the planet as a whole. The trees are the lungs of the planet, and as we decimate rainforests in the Amazon, climate temperatures rise, and we have worse hurricanes in Florida. So I think all of these great world leaders like Maathai have this vision and this sense of, beyond being very grounded within a particular community, this sensibility for all of humanity and for the future, and our deep responsibility we have to those who come after us, especially children. So all these great leaders talk so often to children. I remember reading about Wangari Maathai that she would frustrate her secretaries and her office aides when she finally got the post in the Ministry of, I think it was Agriculture or Environment, I can't remember her title. Thank you, in Kenya. She would totally frustrate her her schedule, because she was supposed to be attending some important ribbon cutting, in Nairobi, and she'd be like, "Oh, no, I've got a tree planting to go to way out." She would try, like a 10-hour car drive to go way out on some tiny little community so she could meet with a group of 20 children and plant trees. That, to me, just speaks volumes of her understanding that we have to teach children the importance of how we are all part of this system, and a responsibility that we can't just build factories all the time. So yeah, I torture my kids with planting trees now, and they're like, oh man, we gotta go plant trees, you're kidding, oh I'm so bored. But I'm hoping that eventually when they're older and they'll remember, I planted trees, and now I'll plant trees with my kids. One of my favorite memories of her is when she was attacked and her head was all bloodied, and she was in the hospital, and so they were attempting to, her political enemies were attempting to belittle her and frighten her. And so instead she called a press conference to her hospital room, and she signed her report with the blood from her head. So, she's just indomitable spirit. And I know too there's such a cost, because she's had to spend a significant amount of time away from her children. Yeah. So there's always that cost to women who are activists for environmental justice and social justice. So there was great personal cost, but when you read her writings, she's never bitter. She's never complains, ever. I mean, I probably complained more in one day about my small worries than she did, in her lifetime. So she's just this really amazing, amazing figure who is such an inspiration, and is just so personally courageous. Many of us, wouldn't have half the guts to do the things that she did, and just to galvanize so many different people, people from different language groups, different tribal ethnicities. That also is incredibly difficult to do in any country, but particularly Kenya, having had so many different political evolutions over time, and she was such a kind of a galvanizing figure and a unifying figure to encourage people across different historic divisions to all come together for the greater good and for the greater purpose. I've been to a lot of very inspiring graduations over the years, but I had never witnessed or even heard of a graduation ceremony like the one that she arranged. So she asked for every graduate to have, when they come through, to have a tree sapling, and they would hold it, throughout the ceremony, and then at the end they would all have a procession, a very beautiful procession out of the auditorium, and go forth and plant their trees in the community, and then there were designated areas on campus. So it's just a genius. And it occurred to me at a certain point when I was reading all about her life and seeing her activism, like the idea of, bringing this tree sapling and then planting it on graduation day. She was a genius. She really was. So she saw how, first and foremost, these kind of, mismatching European colonial ideas of how to do development, or, okay, great, we'll just set off this area and throw the cattle in there and it'll all be great, and it's like, and then after 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's completely depleted, grazed out, compacted. So she saw all this going on that had happened so gradually. It's like when things happen so gradually, sometimes it's just easy not to notice. Yeah. But she noticed.
My little thing is educating girls to become leaders in their families, in their communities, and in our world.
My little thing, freedom, freedom, freedom.
My little thing is helping bring to reality the Wangari Maathai house the place where the works and life of the great Professor Maathai will be told, and where her legacy and memory will be immortalized.
My little thing right now is to continue to support the Greenbelt movement as she left it.
My little thing is letting my light shine, just like Wangari taught us.
My little thing is to empower women and to show them that anything is possible.
My little thing is, in this 21st century, as much knowledge as we acquire means absolutely nothing if it does not humanize.
And my little thing is telling stories about Africa. And not just stories about Africa, but us telling our stories. I use a simple technique called FUBU. For us, by us. That's the African story.